The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Halbrook Industries on the morning everything changed, and inside the marble lobby, a security guard named Walter Amaze stood frozen as his badge was ripped from his hands in front of 40 employees who had once called him a friend. "You're done here," said Corbin Vance, the young CEO who had inherited the company 8 months earlier and had spent every one of those months trying to prove he belonged in his father's chair. "Theft is theft, Walter. I don't care how long you've worked here." Walter did not argue. He simply nodded, picked up the small cardboard box someone had hastily packed with his belongings, and walked out into the storm without an umbrella. He was 61 years old, and he had guarded the doors of Halbrook Industries for 22 years, ever since Corbin was a boy who used to sit on the lobby couch waiting for his father to finish late meetings. Nobody in that lobby remembered that anymore. All they had seen was a grainy security clip of Walter slipping something into his jacket near the supply closet at 2 a.m., and that was enough. If this story is already pulling at your heart, take a moment to like this video, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel, because what happens next is a lesson in hope and wisdom that I think you need to hear, especially if you still believe that kindness deserves a second chance. Walter walked home that afternoon through puddles that soaked through his worn shoes, thinking not of himself but of his granddaughter, Ivy, a bright 7-year-old girl he had raised alone since her parents died in a car accident 4 years earlier. Ivy had a heart condition that required a specialized medication, one that cost more than Walter's monthly salary, and for the past year he had been quietly skipping his own lunches to afford it. He had never told anyone at work. He was a proud man, the kind who believed a person's struggles were their own business and nobody else's burden. That night, Walter sat at his kitchen table with Ivy asleep in the next room, staring at the unemployment paperwork he now needed to fill out, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to cry. He thought about the box he had taken from the supply closet that night, a box of expired first aid supplies the company was throwing away anyway, bandages and antiseptic wipes he had planned to use for Ivy's scraped knees, because buying new ones meant less money for her medicine. He had never imagined a grainy camera angle would make that look like theft of something valuable. He had never imagined anyone would ask him to explain before deciding his fate. 3 weeks passed, and Corbin Vance found himself unable to shake a strange unease. He had built his reputation on decisiveness, on cutting the noise and making the hard calls his father never could, but something about firing Walter had stayed lodged in his chest like a splinter he couldn't quite reach. One evening, staying late to review the quarter's security footage for an unrelated audit, Corbin's assistant, a sharp young analyst named Priya Okonkwo, paused the tape and frowned at the timestamp beside Walter's face. "Sir, this doesn't add up," she said, rewinding the footage. "Look at what he actually took. It's inventory that was already logged for disposal. And look at the time, he clocked out an hour later than his shift required, unpaid, every single night that week. He was doing rounds nobody asked him to do." Corbin felt something cold settle in his stomach. He asked Priya to dig further, and what she found over the next 2 days unraveled something in him completely. Walter had been quietly covering blind spots in the building's security for months without pay, had once personally paid out of pocket to fix a broken lock on the loading dock rather than file a slow maintenance request, and had been the only person who noticed and reported a real break-in attempt 18 months earlier that could have cost the company far more than a box of expired bandages. And then Priya found the hospital records Walter had once submitted, years ago, for a company wellness program he'd since let lapse, records that mentioned a granddaughter named Ivy and a heart condition that required constant care. Corbin did not sleep that night. He kept thinking of Walter as a young security guard who used to sneak him candy from the vending machine when his father worked too late to notice his son was hungry. He thought about how easily he had thrown away 22 years of quiet loyalty over 11 seconds of blurry footage, without ever once asking Walter to explain himself. The next morning, Corbin drove himself to the small apartment complex where Walter lived, something no CEO in the building's history had likely ever done for a fired security guard. He knocked, and when Walter opened the door, thinner and grayer than Corbin remembered, holding little Ivy's hand, Corbin felt the weight of his mistake land fully on his shoulders. He did not offer excuses. He simply said he was sorry, that he had judged without asking, that he now understood exactly who Walter was and what he had sacrificed in silence for years. He offered Walter his job back, full back pay, and a promotion to head of building security, along with full coverage for Ivy's medical needs through the company's health plan. Walter's eyes filled with tears. He did not bother hiding this time. He had spent his whole life believing that quiet decency went unnoticed, that men like him were replaceable, invisible, easy to discard. Standing in his doorway that morning, he learned that sometimes the truth finds its way to the surface, even after the damage is done, and that some people are capable of humbling themselves enough to fix what they've broken. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Let the world know that kindness still matters, that second chances still happen, and that the truth always has a way of coming home. And before we go, do me one small favor. Comment the word hope below if you believe every Walter out there deserves to be seen, heard, and believed before judgment ever comes. Walter returned to Halbrook Industries the following Monday, not through the service entrance, but through the front doors, where Corbin himself stood waiting to shake his hand in front of everyone who had once watched him walk out in shame.